There's a social dimension. If you kind of teach the technique and people can build themselves their structures, their expanded bodies with different materials, recycling materials. You can enact these outdoors or indoors, like in your house as well, in different scales. How can you generate dynamic environments anywhere, anytime? How you can carry these in your rucksack and pop them up anywhere in a street, and you simply, you're not performing for like a show for someone else, but it's for your own perception. But then it does disrupt the traditional, non-confrontationally disrupt or disalign the way that environment is built, because it's built through movement. A street is built of movements. A classroom is built of movements. How you perform. So then when you suddenly bring these kind of more illegible body, expanded bodies that hopefully invite to discover unusual behaviors, more indeterminate ones, how does that possibly intervene in any kind of situation? And how can you build your own environments? So you see the project has many layers, which are independent but can come together. So bare movement, so as I suggested, just moving at 1 centimeter per second in the street is for me the most powerful experience I've had. Or, disaligning movement in more complex ways in any situation. Micro movement is something that anybody can do because you're working on a micro scale. Which can then grow, of course. Then working with just bare physical structures that you can build yourself and that connect to the other movement techniques. Then adding onto these what you will see tonight and tomorrow in the workshop, which are the different kinds of digital or electronic environments, of sound, of visuals, and so forth. So it's multi-layered approach, multi-layered instrument or meta-body, meta-instrument. But in any way, what for me is very important is that these should never be seen as mere objects or structures with a shape. They are inseparable from this inaction through movement. And with this idea of having a distributed ecology in which you are not simply trying to control the structure, repeating a movement that is known to you, but how the environment invites you also to discover movement. How does that then eventually afford this idea that I was mentioning yesterday of trying to infuse more indeterminacy into the field as a positive force, right? Rather than trying to capture your activity into predictive kind of frameworks. So in hyper-control environments, the modulation of our behaviors happens through trying to capture it into alignments, capitalization somehow. Through how we align ourselves with perceptual structures, the interfaces. If we would not align ourselves with the interface of Facebook, then we would not be capitalized by that, of course. So there's a crucial capture point in the interface there, and how it's operating at many levels. Here it would be like the reverse move. It's not about modulating for capturing, but modulating for opening up somehow. Of course, we'd have to see if that's happening really or not, but at least it's the purposeless purpose of this kind of environment. Generating creative purposelessness, uselessness. My idea is that if everything is useful, then everything is already preempted and defined, and then it's dead. In communication, for example. For there to be creativity, there must be uselessness in terms of not everything that's happening is already codified in a system of utility. Right? That's why, for me, uselessness, in that sense, is an essential property of any living systems that's to be created. Because if everything is already codified in a concept of utility, then everything is already kind of preempted and deprived of its emergent qualities. And so the tendency of hyper-control systems is to try to bring everything into every useless flow of desire to be capitalized sometimes, right? Now, how to do a reverse kind of move? That's a very complex question given the complexity and dynamism of big data systems, which is really so radical. Imagine these, for example, just with the sound on. So, imagine we'll see with visual, sound, and everything. But just adding the sensors in the structures in the body that add sound. That would be a between layer. I haven't already done that. Or just with lighting modifying it. We perform tasks that in lab. Well, one possibility is that if you work processing because of the sound structure itself, like you would process your voice. And then, of course, how that changes the topic of technique. Already now you were mentioning that you have a new feeling for sound. Then if it's being also processed electronically, then again it's another layer of dynamics. And then if you introduce different kinds of visual environments, then again you will see that I work with two different kinds of visual environments. How that adds different kinds. And considering that we are building smaller approaches like this one, so smaller approaches. Oh, you will wrap it. Look, this is a electric speaker. This is a speaker. Some of us also data is really good. It's from a Korean company. Has an expensive material. So this is a small version. This is a small piece. Where is so this is something you can wear in a small place and carry it, play it anywhere. And it has even got already incorporated so we can connect to a wearable computer and then we're processing our voice. So I carry the computer, the small computer, on me to a small exoskeleton. Levels of pain. And so this idea of, it's an energy you carrying around. It's something that you perform with it anywhere, especially given that it's not quite legible. I'm interested with that function of legible, illegible, ineligible. Because of course if you're a musician and you bring out probably in London, I don't know, it's quite regulated, so someone will tell you, no, not around the moment. Yeah. But what if you do this? It's actually an achievement of the economics that you're doing.
Yeah. We see that you belong. Yes, that's
But if you do something that's not quite legible, for me it's always interesting to play with that. Especially now in terms of today, electrical behavior and culture. Big data culture is oriented towards an incredibly sophisticated way of analyzing behaviors, non-conscious behaviors. how to be not fully legible, or at least how to try to move in the opposite direction instead of being always transparent and become aligned with that bit, with that move in the opposite direction, be more complex, be more logical, be more maybe we won't always achieve it because applications are different. Fine, what about the number of phrases we need is also unbelievable. But to at least work that out rather than open our needs to see the amount of products in governments, universities, and that's always the direction of production.
I mean, is there a space outside?
I think that would be a great topic to discuss. Let's see if we have a few minutes. Is everyone out? Let's have a final feedback. We have a great question here to discuss. So first, maybe just if you want to share anything that you felt that you and.
Jaime, I've got a question for the first part of the workshop, but I can ask it later.
No, whatever.
You know. Shall go for it? And I was just wondering about that relationship between listening, allowing space and time for the micro movements, following them, and then engaging with those process of disalignment. Is there, I'm not sure if I understood correctly, but I understand the first process very much a process of being led, being done by those, very small kind of muscular adjustments. But then the other process is very much almost a way of resisting this, because
no, what you resist in that part is your
or making conscious decision in order to. Oh no! I need to go somewhere where I'm unfamiliar with.
In that point, in that part, there's this after the fact becoming aware of what's going on. Like we're always like that. So it's always when we believe we are conscious of a situation and consciously in control. At least what free movement theories say is that we are always consciousness is always coming after the fact, censoring after the fact. The body is always happening there, and then consciousness comes after the fact and says, "Oh, take it easy." Well, it's true that in that part of the exercise, it's where on the verge of consciousness you say, "Oh, it's approaching a known territory. Let's again explore the unknown." Or what we didn't, because we didn't really have time to do that. When we go deep into the exercise, it's really about exploring the alien, because when you explore that, you often enter really alien sensations. And so there might be a tendency to go away from that alien sensation. And so often I say, no, stay with the alien, explore it, see how it feels, stay with the uncanny, embrace the uncanny. Uncanny feeling, oh, this is very so good. Don't run away from it, no. Explore that big. But of course, there's a verge of an interplay between conscious decisions and say we're leaving more space for the non-conscious, unintentional movement, but it's not the only. It's an interesting function.
The first time, never guessed. But when I actually tried it, when you said this micro movement, I didn't think about how it will look like, just let it do it and these things. But it actually really made sense. Because I suddenly realized that my body is something else in my it's not just, I don't know, it's just not about my body shape, but actually this whole environment. So, yeah, I think it was very interesting for me. I'm not sure whether you actually do this kind of workshop for romances.
Yeah, it's always quite.
So, well, no, as an observer from outside, it was everything is really new, really in the world. And then when I actually really tried it, it really makes sense. Especially this space with this
I was trying to imagine being there and I was wondering how that can, not quite living in it, but it's becoming just obviously it has to get through the door if you can, but is that something that
Yes, that's a great question. Yeah. So one of the issues I'd like to explore is how it can become much more durational, how it can transform or become your inhabitable space. And then it depends, well, would it follow you everywhere, or would it be something you come in and out of, and then it has different scale? Maybe it follows you a smaller scale. I was showing others a small BBC and a smaller one. So we build these in small scale and larger scale, so often they are multi-layers, so they hang in a scale, the smaller ones inside. So that's a very interesting question which I would like to explore. What happens when it becomes a durational experience? That would be a first step. Let's say in a residency for 3 weeks living in the course of we'd like to see what happens when you have to, well, of course you eat yourself there, go to the toilet and or you just go out, or how does it affect your consciousness? How would one arrive to building a fully inhabitable space for living, a house? Just as it is outside, so that you put it outside and you live in it. I mean, technically it's not so difficult, since again the techniques we are deriving this from are very robust tent techniques that can be actually on top of a mountain in the snow or in a square, as we see them also again, for example in the case of or occupied, and so on. So I don't think I think it would be quite easy to arrive to a robust, weatherproof version of this. We're experimenting now with outer skins of waterproof materials. But the issue, the more interesting issue is the concept. How can you have a living environment and working environment which is non-functional and fluid dynamic? So it is something I'm interested in pursuing. I don't yet know.
But for me, there was a clear sense of neighboring and this sense of expanding atmosphere, because at some point I was thinking, oh, shall I go towards sit? And it very much felt I'm going to be going into sit as cell or house, and I didn't know if that was okay, in the same way you don't know if it's okay, you have to go to someone's bedroom or whatever. So I think there was that very clear sense to me, proprioceptively, that we are this together and feeling all these tensions with other people feeling and stuff. But there was also a very clear sense of private space and then maybe a co-inhabited space. This is how I was thinking of people as co-inhabitants. And because I was thinking, how would I call it? Yeah. And then also that the space outside the structure and the membrane.
I guess the ways in which we can explore different connections of the molecules would alter the way in which that feels. The materials also, I like a lot, I've been many years playing with translucent materials, and now when it becomes multi-layers, and for me it's interesting the fact that you are inside translucent structures so that you also see what's beyond and you see the others, but still, so it's separated but not playing with that blurriness of the splits that we normally have. I think it can be developed further, exploring when does it feel more separated or when does it blur even more. Yeah, and you will see when it has the projections on it again, it's very nice.
It also reminds me, they were talking about, I think it's in one of the islands in Greece, about a Cycladic settlement, where basically that kind of distinction between private and public space wasn't really there, that one house kind of led into the other and there were interconnected yards and stuff like that. So it wasn't that each family had their own house, which is very much what we're experiencing now, that relationship between private and public space. But it was more like that kind. And I'm thinking again, if we were to take this further as kind of injecting some sort of opposition into the system, what could this tell us about the way we live, the way we understand private and public?
I think I was mentioning yesterday the fact that we're mostly unaware, I think, that digitality has dissolved those boundaries, but we still believe our common sense is still living 2 centuries ago. It's still living disciplinary society, where you in an analog space where you shut your door and you believe that you are in a private space. But in your room, you are connected to Facebook. And of course, nothing is private. That doesn't exist. Yes, you will know Facebook records, or maybe you don't know, records all your drafts, whether you publish them or not. So, the fact of clicking on publish doesn't make a difference, because even if it's just a draft of you, the company will search it with its big data robots and record it forever. Maybe you know this. So it's just an example to say that already now, the kinds of distinctions of private and public that we believe we live in no longer there. To a large extent, wherever the digital is crossing, I think that boundary has dissolved. So for me, what is interesting is to think of that, not just in terms of how a physical space is operating and how, the cells that interconnect and all, but of behavioral patterns. Because what digital systems do is to trace your behavior all the time in incredibly sophisticated ways, scrolling all sorts of data networks, your GPS position with your Google searches, with your Facebook comments, with your emoticon clicking, with your everything, with your accelerometers and gyroscopes, with your mobile phone that particular individuals, its non-conscious movements. So there again, how does this dynamic kind of environment invite or infuse emergent behaviors that go towards more complexity and illegibility there where big data systems are looking for patterns all the time? So I say yes to your question, but again adding not just in terms of how physical spaces interact, but how the behaviors can be more open-ended rather than more capturable. Because when we're using the traditional interfaces, and no matter if we now will have an Oculus Rift instead of a mobile phone, because the way that the whole kinetics of the interaction is built, that's what matters. Because some people were telling me, okay, but now with the Oculus Rift, the 3D glasses, you no longer have the frame of the perspective of Windows, right? Now, suddenly, the frame has disappeared. Well, no, because it all depends on how the interaction is designed, the movements of the interaction. If you're using an Oculus Rift, but still the interaction is designed in a manual to visual alignment of certain functional one-to-one relations like you do in Windows, then you still reenact the frame, even if you don't see it. So that's not going to solve the problem. On the contrary, it will capture everyone 24 hours in virtual reality, where more of your movements becomes traceable. So it's a very tricky and complicated question. And now for me, it's shifting towards more and more complex behavioral shifts. And so how to count that? Capture the behavior, modulation of behavior. So here, of course, we are modulating behavior, not so much in terms of trying to make them more traceable, but maybe trying to afford more limits.
How do you have people with visual impairment?
I have a couple of times I've had the installation, but briefly, I have to say. Well, what's interesting is that actually they did have visual sensations, shapes. But I haven't had enough experience to see how it transforms their